Well, I was 28 years old. I was on the beach in Jamaica with my best friend from college, and I looked over at his foot, and on the bottom of his foot was a purple mark about the size of a dime. I suspected that it was a Kaposi's sarcoma lesion, and it was one of those moments when everything fell apart. And those dividing moments when there's before and after. I not only knew that he had AIDS, but I suspected that I probably was infected with AIDS too, because we had been running parallel tracks. We had been best friends in college, come to New York together. He was an attorney, I was in publishing. We had very similar lifestyles. And people had been getting sick with this thing for the last couple of years, and nobody knew what it was. The New York Times called it GRID. I was working at the time as an editor at Interview magazine for Andy Warhol. I had a very interesting life. It was an enviable life for somebody who had come from where I did, as just a kid from California. It was also very empty for me, and it had been for a while. I was questioning what I was doing, why I was doing it, and feeling like it didn't reflect my value system. John died. A few months after he died, he went very quickly. He went in about 4 months after from the time of seeing that lesion. He died very, very fast. A couple of months after that, I quit my job. I left New York. I went to India with a guy named Andrew Harvey, who came along at a moment when I really needed a mentor. I spent the next 10 years, more or less, being a Dharma bum, traveling, being a seeker. I didn't have any permanent address. There was no treatment for HIV. I was watching my T cells go down like sand in the hourglass, and I was waiting to die. At the same time that I was terrified and I had given up my life, I was finding my life. The death scare that I had at 28 years old gave me my life. It gave me my true work. It gave me whatever vision I have. It really set me on the path to an authentic sense of self. And the truth is that death is a great awakener, and that's not original. Every philosophy says that facing your mortality is the doorway to a new life. And the year that my T cells actually bottomed out, and immunologically I was a complete goner, the treatments for HIV arrived. It was this strange experience of being sort of pulled back to life after you've been expecting to die and preparing to die. All of a sudden, you've been given your future back, and you've been given the possibility of, as my doctor put it, a long, healthy life. It was a shock. And for me, the shock came with a kind of mandate not to waste what I had learned. So I didn't want to lose that sense of emergency and urgency that I had in my life. I didn't want to live terrified, but I wanted to live with an awareness of mortality, and for that to sit on my shoulder, the way Castaneda talks about keep death on your shoulder. I wanted to not forget that we're just here for a second, and that second is incredibly precious. Dostoevsky put it, he said he wanted to live with what the condemned know. Once you've been through that experience of having been condemned, you may have been reprieved for a while, but you never forget what that vulnerability feels like. And it's that very vulnerability that gives you another kind of strength. We're taught that strength comes from control and ego and being certain and possessions and all of those things, which are the antithesis of what true strength actually is. Strength comes from what can't be taken away. And what I learned in my experience is that every time I moved across a threshold of sheer terror, I'm talking about terror, when you are, I at one time, I remember one day I was literally on the floor of my best friend's apartment, shaking, and she was holding my hand. I was terrified. I was waiting to get sick, in a horrible way. Every time I moved across one of those thresholds of terror, and I was still there, I realized who I wasn't. And who I wasn't was that fearful, kind of illusory ego self that was holding on to everything and needed to be sure about the future. And that isn't who I was at all. And what survivors know, what I learned, and what many of the wise people I've talked to, I did a book called When You're Falling Dive, which was all about people who had been through this experience in various ways across the board. And what we all share is this awareness of the mystery of being and gratitude for the day. You are alive, you're a mysterious phenomenon on a mysterious planet in the middle of nowhere, spinning with the ability to perceive yourself in this phenomenal world. Be happy, be grateful, be interested and curious, and don't let life crush your spirit. Don't let yourself be sucked under by trivia and mundane problems or egotistical, concerns that are gone tomorrow. Don't let that cloud your day. Don't let that cloud your vision. The world is a miracle, and that's really what I learned through this experience.